It's all quiet in the underground bunker. Doors closed, locks bolted. But the Great One isn't just resting on his laurels. He's making sure your weekend is even better by giving you his best. This is the best of Mark Levin.
I want to thank you, America. I want to thank particularly the people who listen to this radio program, you. Watch my Fox show and my Blaze show. We spent all 3 hours last evening pushing out the vote in this country from sea to shining sea, focusing on battleground states as well as other states like Virginia and so forth. It had an effect. That's what I do. We've spent months leading up to this fateful day discussing the substance, not pollsters, not analysis of polls, which got people absolutely nowhere. At the end, they said, we don't know who's going to win. What did I say? We're not in the prediction business, the pollster business, the expert analysis business. We're in the let's get off our asses and vote business. That's exactly what you did. We pushed hard here for early voting, even when some in our party were still skeptical. We said, forget it. We got to beat them at their game, and you did. We said, you've got to do more than you've ever done before, and many of you did exactly that. We said during the course of yesterday's 3-hour program, each state, the time the polls closed, while you're in the cars listening to the program or at home, that you needed to act, and once you got there, you needed to stay in line. You did all these things. You saved the country. We, the American people, did exactly what we're supposed to do. We did what generations before us have done in this country, and hopefully generations after us. You saved this country for your family. And you can tell your kids what you did on November 5th. I can tell today that for so many Americans, the world is a better place. We have a reinvigorated patriotism for our country, for our fellow citizens. That in the end, the American people were not going to buy any more of this. That the American people were going to put an end to it. The American people, black, brown, yellow, red, white, male and female, Jew and Gentile. Yes, Democrats, Independents, and Republicans. Enough was enough. We didn't want the dystopia, or as I wrote, the Ameritopia, that was being imposed on us. We didn't want to be lorded over every decision we make about an item that uses energy. We want to drive what we want to drive. We want to build the kind of home we want to build. We want to live where we want to live. We want the government to keep its hands off our children, both their minds and their genitalia. Is I really asking too much? They said that the opposition would win on the issue of abortion. They didn't. Because over time, as we explain on this program and every platform I have, they don't favor abortion. They favor infanticide. There is a huge, huge difference. That's what their records show. That's what their votes show. That's what their statements show. Same with the immigration issue, this bipartisan bill. We spent months explaining that bipartisan bill was not a bipartisan bill. It was not a security bill. It was an amnesty bill that would result in tens of millions of more illegal immigrants coming to this country, unvetted. Terrorists, killers, rapists, gang members, fentanyl, and with chain migration, there'd be no end to it. You understood. You responded. We want some normalcy. We want our America back. We don't want fundamental transformation. We want free will, individual liberty, a civil society, a culture that is built on our founding principles, on our Judeo-Christian faith, and other faiths that have gone through the Reformation process. And now we have another chance. Now we have another chance. You did this. You did this. We the people. And I knew you would, and I knew you could. You defeated a totalitarian force that was telling us what kind of language to use, how to identify each other using pronouns, that we should not recognize biological science when it comes to our fellow human beings. It was insanity. It was lunacy. You rejected Marxism and jihadism. You rejected the ruling class that is incompetent, that is fat with power, that wants to monopolize the public square. You said, no, this is my country. And you were right. President Trump received 45% of the Jewish vote. That's unheard of. He received 25% of the vote of black men. Unheard of. He received, I think, a majority of the vote of Latino men. Unprecedented. We can't all be racists. We can't all be misogynists. Kamala Harris did not receive the women's vote to the extent that she thought she would, and the so-called pollsters and experts said she would. We've spent 3.5 months in lies and fabrications about who supports whom and what supports what. Our damnable media. It's not a free press. It's a Pravda. It's an Al Jazeera. You saw through it all. And we together, in early voting and yesterday, we together said no more. I have never been so proud and so humble to sit behind this microphone. Never. People write me and they say to me, Mark Levin, thank you for everything you're doing. No. You did this. Those of you who are listening to this program right now, every walk of life, whether you're in a car or truck, whether you're at home, whether you're still at the office, people wearing headphones, who work at gas stations, we get from all walks of life here. Truckers, you did this. You should be proud of yourselves. You should take a moment out and thank yourselves. Housewives, working women, thank yourselves. Everybody, you did this. We united. And we said no. And as a result, we had a landslide election. Now, landslide elections now do not look like landslide elections in 1980 and 84 because the demographics have changed. So much else has changed. But it's a landslide election. There's no question about it. Under current understanding of what a landslide is, Donald Trump will win the popular vote. They said no Republican can ever do that again. So now they can't attack the Electoral College as a reason why he won. He will have won over 300 Electoral College votes. That's a landslide. There's not a county in the country where he didn't do better than before. That is unbelievable. Also notice, America, 81 million votes for Biden. Nobody came close to that this time, which to me underscores how absolutely rotten that last election was. There's no way anybody could get 81 million votes. It's not possible, especially somebody who is virtually brain dead. It's just not possible. But that's far behind us now. That's way behind us now. Donald Trump overcame $1.2 billion in character assassination ads paid for by Democrat Party billionaire oligarchs, many using dark money so you wouldn't know who they are. Donald Trump overcame what really is tens of billions of dollars in so-called in-kind contributions from media corporations. NBC, ABC, CBS, CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times, the Washington Post, and all the rest. He defeated them. You defeated them. You defeated them. He overcame an effort to destroy him financially. And that slob has still spoken, Letitia James, and I'll get to her later. She should be disbarred. She's the one who should be in an orange jumpsuit. And I'm sure it would be a size 28. Just saying. As a careful observer of the body politic. Donald Trump was subjected to the worst kind of legal abuse of any public figure, any candidate for public office in American history. And he bravely and courageously fought them, as did his lawyers, who were damn good. They stole money from him. They wanted to steal all of his businesses from him. Like a Hugo Chavez. Like a Stalin in the state of New York. But he fought them. They impeached him twice for nothing. Absolutely nothing. A complete setup. They launched a criminal investigation into Russia collusion. They create Russia collusion, and then they investigated him criminally. They abused his family with endless subpoenas and depositions. Enormous costs. Personally, physically, mentally, you can imagine. And financially. And if he hadn't won this election, he was going to federal prison. And he won. Thanks to you. Thanks to you, the American citizen. You were not a sunshine soldier. You were an active, patriotic American. You stood on the shoulders of the men and women who've come before us. I cannot tell you how proud I am. I am brimming with pride because of you. The ruling class was defeated. Now, if you think they're going to roll over and go away, if you think they're going to lie in the corner of fetal position and proclaim that they have to change or that they accept defeat, you're dead wrong. You need to know the enemy. Don't be fooled. They're not going to rest. They don't want unification. That's all crap. That's all talk. That's not who they are. That's not what they want. They're power hungry. They're power hungry. And they haven't changed. They're still the same people. They haven't changed at all. There's not another candidate I can think of who would have been able to overcome all this. I told you the other day, Donald Trump is a historic, iconic figure. That's how history will treat him. But we don't live in history. We live in the here and now. And we have a country to save, a border to secure, criminals to put in prison and deport. We have patriotic Americans who volunteer to serve in the military, who put their careers and their lives on the line serving in law enforcement, and firefighters and first responders. We have a duty to them. As they always have a duty to us, well, we have a duty to them too. Enough is enough. And we've had enough of the Hitler Youth in our streets, the jihadists, chasing Jews in college campuses. We need to get to the bottom of who's funding them, and we need to deport those who aren't supposed to be here in the first place. And if there's Ivy League schools and other schools that receive federal grants, and they won't put an end to this, then we put an end to them. We can't have taxpayers subsidized, that is you and me, taxpayers subsidized, Jew hatred, or any hatred for that matter, but Jew hatred, that's the focus. No more. No more. There's many things we need to do. We need to take our classrooms back. We need to teach our kids science and mathematics and arithmetic and literature. Their test scores are plummeting. The schools don't belong to the AFT and the NEA. They belong to the parents who pay the taxes, the rest of us, we the taxpayers, and it's a place for our children, not perversion. Our children. It's a new day. But I'm not a Pollyanna, neither are you. Every minute forward is going to be a battle. But we can do this. We just proved it. We can do this. And we will do this.
Mark Levin.
Making your weekend even better. This is the best of Mark Levin.
You know, we have a massive echo chamber here. You know, it's interesting. The day the president won officially that night, which was Wednesday early morning, I should say, we came on the air, I guess that's yesterday evening, and what did I say? There's going to be no dictatorship. There's going to be no Hitler. There's going to be no using of the military to kill people who disagree with you. That none of that's going to occur. There's not going to be any attack on the Dobbs decision and the decision of the states when it comes to abortion, and on and on and on. That none of that's going to happen. And out comes Kamala Harris and basically says, can't we all get along in our own way, which is actually a bizarre way. And then there's Biden today squinting and squealing, basically saying the same thing, because that was all a lie. That Donald Trump was going to destroy democracy. That was all a lie. What else on the echo chamber? I put out a statement, but this is something I've talked about for months and months and months and months when it comes to the law. That these two memoranda from the Department of Justice, one dated 1973 and the other dated 2000, should Donald Trump get elected president, are basically his, I don't want to say bulletproof vest, but you get my point. You cannot indict a sitting president, but it's more than that. When you read those opinions, as I probably am the only one who has, they go much more broadly than that. Basically, the entire problem, they say, with indicting a sitting president, and that is Donald Trump will be a sitting president when he's sworn in, is the entire length of a trial that they focus on, and the various steps in a trial, and how that degrades the office of the presidency, and so forth and so on. Now, I know they're putting Bill Barr out there because Bill Barr listens to this show. Those two memos nobody was referring to. You might recall I've been using them for years now. And not just him, others. Others. And then I said on the state cases, the same applies to that. We're not talking about civil actions, we're talking about criminal actions. Number one, you have the supremacy clause of the Constitution. Local and state prosecutors and local and state courts have no authority or jurisdiction to pursue cases against a soon-to-be president at any stage of the case. That is sentencing. Sentencing is the most poignant in terms of the argument of the memo. Because at least theoretically, you have the ability to put an incoming president in jail, in state jail? No. So a state and local prosecutor, or state and local courts, states period, have no authority to affect a president's constitutional duties and the functioning of his office. It's that simple. It's over. And if Merchan, the acting state judge, doesn't agree to that, eventually that will be the decision. Because Donald Trump is the president-elect. So this Alvin Bragg Merchan case is over. It's a dead case walking, whether this judge likes it or not. So for half a century, it's been the position of Democrat and Republican administrations that the Department of Justice cannot indict a sitting president. This position has been justified for a myriad of reasons, all of which come down to the fact that the president is the head of the executive branch, and unelected prosecutors, juries, and judges cannot exercise a power that makes it impossible for a president to carry out his constitutional duties while defending his liberty and reputation in a courtroom. So to allow such a procedure would be to do permanent damage to the constitutional system of our government and set a precedent that could not be reversed once that cat's let out of the bag. That is, prosecutors indicting a sitting president for infinite potential reasons that destroy the purpose of the functioning of the executive branch. Because under our Constitution, the president is the executive branch. Now, the issues come up as to whether the same principles of non-prosecution, as I underscored yesterday, would apply where the charges are brought by a state or locality. After all, it's been argued, and it's been argued by law professors, former federal prosecutors, everybody and their mother, that the Department of Justice jurisdiction is federal, not state. Now, I've straightened this out on Fox, I've straightened it out on Blaze, and I've straightened it out here, and now finally some of the backbenchers, they've learned how to regurgitate it. And they pat themselves on the head. Look what I figured out. They figured out nothing. Bill Barr has always been an obsessive listener to this program. So it's good that I can educate a former attorney general, among others. among others. We don't operate with reverse federalism, is what I call it. That is, where states and localities have the power to influence a federal constitutional office. That's preposterous. And yet that's what's going on here. So the judge, Merchant, should dismiss the case with prejudice, and it's over. Say, look, it's over. He's been elected president. So what happens if he doesn't? Obviously, not only should the courts in New York and Georgia, upon motions by the president's lawyers, which they've already filed, is my understanding. All right, Mr. Producer, we're going to take an early break. I'll be right back, and I'll explain it later.
Mark Levin.
You're listening to the best of Mark Levin.
Sorry, folks, I got a call and I couldn't say no. You can figure that out yourselves. You figure that out, Mr. Producer? Can you figure out who called? Yeah, you know. So, sorry, folks. Let me get back to what I was talking about. These cases won't survive, the federal and the state cases. Just a matter of time. Because since it is, and is, the position of the federal government, all administrations, all departments of justice, both parties, all attorneys general, that you can't take criminal actions against a sitting president can affect his presidency, the office of the presidency, the executive branch, and sort of reverse the decision of the people to vote for this person, or diminish his reputation or character as he's dealing with foreign powers and issues of war and peace, then clearly a state or a local DA does not have the power to do exactly that. First of all, they don't have the jurisdiction under the Supremacy Clause. That's number one. So everything's changed. I would argue that President Trump could have reversed all this at the Supreme Court anyway, but everything's changed because now he's the elected incoming president of the United States. So you're Judge Merchant and you're sitting there. What are you going to do? You're going to say, you know what, I'm going to put an ankle bracelet on you? No, that'll be challenged in federal court and killed. And if they need to get to the Supreme Court, they should use one of the common law certs that I've talked about at length. And it'll be finished. It'll be over in no time. No time. So they have no way out. They're boxed in. Merchant's boxed in New York. All those courts are boxed in. Again, on the criminal side, I can't speak to the civil side. It's a different thing according to the Supreme Court. But we're in the weeds enough. And over at the Department of Injustice, they realize they have nothing. There's nothing they can do. This is why they were all in a rush to try and get these cases going before the election, and they hoped to get him convicted at the federal level and in jail before the election. That's why they were in a rush. They did that in Manhattan without the jailing part, rushed to get the convictions in a Stalinist trial with a Stalinist jury and a Stalinist judge and a Stalinist prosecutor, in my humble opinion. Now we're in the sentencing section. Well, Mark, that's not, you can't indict a former, it has nothing to do with that. They say you can't indict because the indictment triggers the process. The entire process. All the way up through sentencing. And so now they're at sentencing, and what's the judge going to do? I sentence you, you pay this, you didn't know. And I happen to know for a fact President Trump's lawyers are on top of this now. But this is what I've discussed with you behind this microphone, on Blaze and on Fox now for almost 2 years, right, Mr. Producer? It's been something like that. This is why I've discussed, this is why I walk you through these things, because they do matter. They make a big difference. So you've got the Supremacy Clause, you've got the Department of Justice memos, you've got basic jurisdictional issues, and yet they still brought these cases. They were hoping he would lose. Now I want to underscore something else about this. Right up to voting day, the official day of voting, and throughout early voting, you were being told by network after network, by cable channel after cable channel, by expert after expert, by these guys with the maps on the boards and the touch screens and all the rest. You were told by pollster after pollster, and the people who allowed these platforms to be used this way really should not have, but that said, that this election is too close to call. Too close to call. It's one of the greatest landslide elections in American history. So they were all wrong. Donald Trump is not going to use the military to kill anybody. He's not going to have concentration camps. He's not going to arrest journalists on TV. He's not Hitler. He's not a dictator. He's not a fascist. He's not going to destroy the Constitution. He's not going to do any of those things. So they lied. And now they say, can't we all get along? Can't we unite? And some of them actually say it's up to Donald Trump to put out his hand for bipartisanship. And so I ask myself, aren't you tired of being lied to by the media? Aren't you tired of being lied to by the Democrats? Post-election, just look back at everything you were told by the experts. Look at everything you were told by $1 billion in ads and the surrogates who came on. Not one of them is going to be fired. Not one of these outlets is going to change what they do. None of it. None of it's going to be changed. And so I'm thinking to myself, what's going on here? Comcast owns NBC and MSNBC. This is Comcast's responsibility when it comes to those networks. They own them. They own them. These major corporations that own CNN, these major corporations that own MSNBC, NBC, ABC, CBS. ABC is owned by Disney. It's owned by Disney. CBS is owned by Paramount. Hollywood, owned by Paramount. NBC is owned by Comcast. I believe Time Warner, if I stand corrected, so be it, Time Warner owns CNN. And, of course, MSNBC is also owned by Comcast. Basically, 3 or 4 mega corporations that put these hosts on, that put these phony journalists on, that put these programs on, that preach hate, poison, viciousness, spew lies. 3 or 4 corporations. Think about it. And one other thing. I love these people who go on TV, including my beloved Fox, who tell us that elections have changed forever now because of podcasting. Podcasting is very important. I happen to be a big proponent of it. But they always ignore the 800-pound gorilla who's sitting right in front of them. You know what the 800-pound gorilla is, Mr. Producer? It's conservative talk radio. What did we do election night? People in their cars, in their trucks, with their radios in their cars and their trucks. 300 million vehicles with radios, and the media ignores conservative talk radio.
Mark Levin.
The Great One makes your weekend even better. This is the best of Mark Levin.
I'm going to start with this, and there's a lot more to go. So stick with us. New York Post, Iranian murder for hire plot against President Trump revealed as 2 New Yorkers also busted and planned to kill journalists. Now, let's stop right here. Let's stop right here. Isn't it enough to take out that bastard regime? This constant threat now against our elected president of the United States? I'm serious, folks. Maybe I'm just getting too old. I remember a day when you did something like that, we would take out these people. I'm serious. Instead, our government subsidizes them. Iran instructed one of its agents running a New York City-based criminal network to stalk and assassinate former President Donald Trump in the 2024 election's final weeks, telling him that, quote, money is not an issue, the feds revealed today. An unnamed official in Iran's notorious Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps tasked 51 during September to, quote, focus on surveilling and ultimately assassinating Trump, according to a bombshell criminal complaint unsealed today by Manhattan federal prosecutors. The complaint charges Shakiri, who remains at large, he's still at large, with murder for hire, as well as 2 New York City men in separate assassination plots targeting a prominent Brooklyn journalist who's been a thorn in the side of the Tehran regime and a pair of unidentified Jewish business people. When Shakiri told his mysterious handler that Trump plot would cost a huge amount of money, the Iranian official hinted at other Tehran-backed attempts to murder the former president, the complaint states. Shouldn't we take this regime out? It's not hard. Shouldn't we at least allow the Israelis to do it? Shouldn't we stop funding them? Harris, Biden, the other reprobates, in a phone conversation with an FBI agent, Shakiri, who did time in U.S. prisons for robbery, said the Iranian official told him October 7 to have a plan in place to kill Trump within 7 days, quote unquote. If Shakiri did not meet his deadline, the contact allegedly said the hit on Trump would be postponed until after the November 5 election because Tehran officials believed that the Republican nominee would lose, and after it would be easier to assassinate him, quote unquote. Imagine being Donald Trump living with this over your head. The charges were unsealed 3 days after Trump defeated Harris to become the 47th president-elect. It's the latest example of what officials have described as ongoing efforts by Iran to target Trump and other current and former government officials on U.S. soil. This is war. Even the isolationists, even the protectionists, even the moronists, they should know that this is war. They're threatening Donald Trump again. The complaint, which refers to the president-elect as victim 4, also charges Brooklyn native Carlisle Rivera, 49, and Staten Islander Jonathan Lodeholt, 36, with murder for hire, conspiracy to commit murder for hire, and money laundering conspiracy. Rivera and Lodeholt were ordered held pending trial. Shakiri, who's believed to be in Iran and out of the reach of the United States, is also charged with conspiring to violate U.S. sanctions against Iran and so forth. He spoke with FBI agents by phone 5 times before late September and as recently as Thursday in hopes of obtaining a sentence reduction for an unnamed person in the U.S. prison system. Now, the complaint details that Shakiri was born in Afghanistan and emigrated to the U.S. as a child, but was deported in 2008 after serving a 14-year prison sentence for robbery. During his time behind bars, Shakiri met Rivera and Lodeholt, later recruiting them to be hitmen, according to the complaint. Now, the Fed say Shakiri initially tasked his cohorts with killing Iranian-American activist and journalist Masha Alinejad. We've seen her on Fox. She's a brilliant and courageous lady. An outspoken critic of the Tehran regime has been targeted for assassination in the past by Iran. So here they are. They want to take out Trump, take out Pompeo, take out O'Brien, take out Bolton, take out this lady. And we sit here, giving them money and everything? Rivera and Lodeholt pursued Alinejad for 9 months, surveilling her Brooklyn home, this is the journalist, and planning to watch one of her talks at Fairfield University in Connecticut. One point, Rivera allegedly complained to Shakiri, this BH is hard to catch, bro. Iran offered Shakiri $1.5 million to kill her, and in turn, he promised Rivera and Lodeholt $100,000 to carry out the dastardly deed, and it goes on. Shakiri also told the FBI he had been instructed by Iran to plot a mass shooting targeting Israeli tourists in Sri Lanka, which prompted the U.S. and Israel governments to issue a travel warning for the island nation on October 23. Actors directed by the government of Iran continue to target our citizens, including President-elect Trump, on U.S. soil and abroad, Manhattan U.S. Attorney Damian Williams said in a statement. This has to stop. The only way it stops is if we take them out before they take us out. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. They keep threatening the sitting president, or soon-to-be sitting president of the United States, wanted to interfere with our election in a most diabolical and murderous way. And then there's this. You know what's amazing about what I'm about to discuss with you? What's amazing about this is how few leaders in our country have spoken out about this. What are you talking about? I'm talking about Amsterdam. Do you know what happened in Amsterdam? I'll tell you what happened in Amsterdam. You had the Israeli soccer team playing the team in Amsterdam. And that Israeli soccer team, thousands of fans from Israel and all over the world, Jewish fans, came to watch them. They lost 5-0. Of course, that's not the story. The story is that thousands of free Palestine, I have to assume Arabs, Muslims, jihadists, on the 86th anniversary of Kristallnacht, laid in wait to attack them, brutalize them, and even kill them. So you literally had citizens from Israel and other parts of the world who came to watch this soccer game, running for their lives, beaten viciously in the streets. The most latest intelligence shows that this was in the works, this plan, for several days before the soccer game. The Palestinian spokes-idiots, whomever they are, they were saying, no, they were provoked because, the Jews were tearing down Palestinian flags and burning them. Is that what Jews do? Where have they done that? It's the opposite. And so, first the police in Amsterdam were overrun. There weren't enough of them. Then they brought in reinforcements. The Prime Minister of Israel, great man that he is, he ordered the IDF and the Mossad, in coordination with the Dutch government, to go to that part of the world and to rescue their people and bring them home. And that's what they did, to a great extent. And the first evacuated Israelis who landed in Israel from Amsterdam, they told of the horror, how they were running for their lives, running into alleys, how others were beaten within an inch of their lives, how it was completely set up, that different parts of the roads and the alleys that they were chased into and so forth, it was all a plot and all planned. Now, this is horrible. The Dutch king condemned the anti-Semitic attack on Israel, the Israeli soccer fans. The Dutch king said, effectively, we let you down during World War II, and we've let you down again. Let me just say this. I've said it before, and I've come under attack for it. The backbenchers will repeat it when they think the coast is clear, but I don't really care. There has been a revolution by immigration all over the world. All over the world. There was a Muslim crusade that was followed by, you've heard, the Christian crusades. Lots of condemnation of the Christian crusades. But that Christian crusade at least began with the idea that they needed to push back against the Muslim crusade. Well, let me tell you a little secret, which isn't a secret to the jihadists and the Islamists. But it's not allowed to pass your lips in the Western world, and certainly not in the United States, and certainly not behind this microphone. You're witnessing a second Muslim crusade. And it is this mass migration into Western Europe. It's this mass migration into the United States, into the Western world. It is something that is being promoted by the jihadis and the Islamists. They've promoted it in writing. I have the sources myself. And so you're now seeing where the head rabbi in France said there won't be a Jew left in France in 10 years. They're all going to have to leave, and urged them to leave. Now you can see in Amsterdam what took place there. Horrendous. Horrendous. You see what's happening in London, England. You see what's happening in New York. It's exactly what it is, a second Muslim crusade. But this one is funded by the jihadis and the Islamists and their states, Qatar, among others, Iran, even their front groups, actually Hamas. That's what's going on in Europe. That's what's going on in the United States. And nobody will tell you this but me, this second Muslim crusade, led by jihadists and Islamists. And as I say, you see them in the streets. There have been organizations that have done a great job, like Heritage and others, like the George Washington University, that studies terrorism and terrorist funding, and others that have focused on the fact that this money's coming into our country, funding students. What is it? Students for in Palestine, yes. And all these other front groups. And I'll have more to report on that probably next week in a big way. Students for Justice in Palestine, of course, excuse me. Got the word justice. I'm stunned at the lack of outspokenness against what's taken place here in Amsterdam. I'm stunned at it. the lack of outspokenness by political leaders of both parties. It's appalling.
Mark Levin.
We're giving you nothing but the best of Mark Levin.
All I know is it's going to be a great Thanksgiving, isn't it, Mr. Producer? Oh, yeah, you're going into the weekend. Smile there, Patriots, smile. You did it. Mark Levin here. Over at The View, they were having sort of a conniption fit. We have, of course, Karen. That would be Whoopi Goldberg. We have Sonny Houston, whose ancestors notoriously were slave owners. We have a real mix of reprobates over there, and but there was a very good back and forth, if you will, kind of chaotic, over at The View. Well, The View is very dark over there. Let's listen in at least for a little bit. Cut 17, go.
I think that I'd like to reframe the conversation. I think Bernie Sanders is wrong. I think the more relevant question actually is what is wrong with America?
All right, so stop. So this is Sonny Houston, you see. The hell's wrong with all you people? She's got the mind of a totalitarian. See, it's you. Now, let me make it clear. We have a great show on Fox tomorrow, Saturday, 8 p.m. Eastern. My opening is a killer. We have Don Jr. and we have Ben Domenech. Two fantastic guests who have fantastic things to say. But I want to say to you what I'm going to say then, in part. The press won't change. The Democrat Party won't change. None of them are going to change. They're all plotting as I speak right now, tonight, on how to destroy Donald Trump, how to destroy his agenda, how to use the law, how to use procedures in Congress, how to use their media brothers and sisters, and the media brothers and sisters, how to use Congress. They're going to ramp it up. They're going to double down, triple down, quadruple down. They're not going to change. They're not gracious. They don't have class. They're not going to roll over in a fetal position. No, they're going to sharpen their teeth. They're going to sharpen their fingernails. That's what they're going to do. This is an evil movement. An evil movement, this counter-revolutionary Marxist jihadist movement. And they don't plan to go anywhere. In fact, they plan to lay political landmines everywhere. Have you heard some of these pathetically stupid governors? Like Newsom, as President Trump calls him in California, or that big fat slob Pritzker in Illinois? Oh, he's a pretty one. Or you go to the governor of Massachusetts, or the jackass who's the governor of New Jersey. You hear these guys, you're going to have to come through me. Oh, that'll be tough. And Hochul there in New York. Complete loser. Oh, they're going to have to come through me. You see what I'm saying? They're not going to change. We have to be ready. I even told the Trump people, you got to be ready. Because these people are going to try and destroy you as much as they've tried to destroy you before. But you have the people behind you. You have the muscle. You now have the control over the executive branch. Go ahead.
What is wrong with our country that the Republican Party would choose as a candidate and support a candidate who is an insurrectionist, who is an election denier, who is someone who was twice impeached, a 34-time convicted felon.
Wow, the clapping seals. I would love to debate this woman, It's Sonny Houston, right? Would you invite her on the show next week? Just say Mark Levin would like to debate you on his radio program. And I'd say, because you're so brilliant, you're beyond smart. We've never seen anything like you on television. And, of course, Mark is just a lowly conservative talk show host, so you should be able to whip his ass pretty good. So why don't you just come on the show, and we'll have a discussion. Let's try that. Go ahead.
Of alleged sexual misconduct by 26 women found liable for sexual abuse. What is wrong with this country that they would choose a message of divisiveness, of xenophobia, of racism, of misogyny over a message of inclusiveness?
I just want you to see, the reason I'm not interrupting her and addressing each one of these things is because you know the answers. And what's amazing about this is the complete and utter disconnect. These people live in their own cocoons. It's unbelievable. Complete and utter disconnect from the American people. You know, this was a massive mandate. People from all walks of life. She's upset at Latinos because the majority of them voted for Trump. She's upset with blacks because a significant number of black men in particular, but blacks period, voted for Trump. She's furious. And so she's lashing out. What they don't mention is all these union members who voted for Trump and defied their union leaders in most cases. I mean, he has united the country. The coalition of people who have voted for Donald Trump, I don't know that we've ever seen this before, of all backgrounds and races and so forth. And other than the state of Washington, he picked up bigger votes out of 49 states that not only he has ever before, but many Republicans have ever before. It's a remarkable coalition that he pulled together, including Democrat Party base organizations and groups, Republican Party base organizations and groups, independents. It's absolutely remarkable. And he always said, I'm ahead by a lot. I'm ahead by a lot. And all the media kept saying, no, it's close. It's close. You know, that's just Trump. I'm ahead by. No, he was ahead by a lot. By a whole lot. Go ahead.
For the people, by the people, of the people.
That
is what the problem is. It's
he
the
won the popular vote.
Party.
But can I say something before we can do a second? The Democrats are the ones. They are the party that cares for the blue collar voter. The Democrats are the ones who put in Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, union protection.
Stop. The Democrats are also the ones that destroyed Social Security and Medicare, and want to destroy it further by allowing illegal aliens on. Now, the idea of Social Security did not come from the Democrats. It came from the Germans. It came from Bismarck in the mid-1800s. And FDR didn't just push through Social Security because he was a great guy. There had been proposals for some kind of a pension subsidy for senior citizens. He latched onto it. He came up with his own program. He pushed it through, and it barely covered anybody. The initial Social Security covered a few 100,000 people. That was it. And that's number one. Number two, when it came to Medicare, there were a number of proposals on the table. Once again, Lyndon Johnson grabbed the idea. It was actually, in many respects, a Republican idea. And he built his own Medicare program, and they pushed it through, and they've been destroying it ever since. And they want to give it to illegal aliens who don't even pay into the system. So they should stop patting themselves on the head. Why don't they talk about the real history of the Democrat Party? Slavery, segregation, Jim Crow, lynching, eugenics. They don't mention that. Why don't they mention that FDR refused to sign in 1940 an anti-federal lynching bill? He refused to sign it. Why don't they mention that FDR refused to even meet with the NAACP leadership? Oh, they will never mention that. Or Jesse Owens. Or Joe Louis. Both of whom voted for and supported Republicans as a result of the way FDR treated them. I could go on and on and on, but why should I? Go ahead.
Employment insurance and Obamacare. The Republican Party doesn't give a rat's patootie about it.
Clearly they didn't convince the voters.
So all I can deduce.
All she talks about is socialist programs or big government programs or programs that people now rely on, entitlement programs and so forth and so on. That's all she talks about. What about liberty? What about economic growth and prosperity? They can't talk about these things. What about limited power so we can live in a free society? What about all those things? And let us also remember it was the Democrat Party that opposed the civil rights movement in the 50s and 60s. It wasn't the Republican Party. It was the Democrat Party that stood in the schoolhouse doors to prevent little black kids from going to school with little white kids. It was the Democrat Party that stood in the doors of colleges and universities to prevent black and white kids from learning in these schools and universities. Why don't they talk about that? And what has the Democrat Party done for the black population, the Latino population, the Asian population today? I mean, they look at these groups, and that's what they see, groups. They don't look at everybody as Americans. What have they done for the American people to improve their lives? They're weak on crime. They're weak on real law and order. The border's wide open. We have international gangs coming into our country, unleashed against our people. We have fentanyl coming into our country. How come they don't mention that? That's another achievement, quote unquote, of the Democrat Party. Anyway, go ahead.
Get through to people. They're not paying attention. That's all.
Yeah,
because the Democrats have always
all right, so
been
now
for the
she says you're too stupid. You're not paying attention. If you paid attention, you'd agree with her. Now, she's got two feathers for a brain in between her ears. That's it. She's an idiot. Same with this Houston, who I want to debate. They said fascism. They said dictator. They talked about how people are going to be rounded up, that they're afraid over there at The View, that they themselves are going to be threatened. After the election, if they don't win, number one, it hasn't happened, and number two, it's never going to happen. They lied to you. They would have supported Joe Biden right into the mental asylum. Go ahead.
I think the message of the Democrats sounded elitist. You don't have value in the society if you don't have a college
that way,
degree.
But when you look at the proof,
but Joy, it's condescending. It's condescending.
Joy, why don't you ever shut the hell up and let somebody else speak? It's not like you have something smart or profound or wise to say. You're just a big mouth. You see how upset they are, though, America? You're going to have a wonderful weekend. You're going to smile. You're going to kiss your spouse and your kids. Maybe you'll go out to dinner together. You're going to have a fantastic Thanksgiving. You're going to say a prayer at your Thanksgiving table with family, friends around. No question about it. Thank God for what took place on Tuesday. Because if we had lost, there'd be 20 million more illegal aliens for sure that would come in the next 4 years. If we had lost, the Supreme Court and its independence would have been destroyed. If we had lost, Donald Trump would be going to prison. If we had lost, the Electoral College would be destroyed, so the 11 most populous blue states would always pick the president and the vice president. If we had lost, they would have given 2 senators each to Puerto Rico and D.C., meaning the Republicans could never win the Senate. If we had lost, our First Amendment free speech rights would have been severely curtailed. Freedom of association would have been severely curtailed. Freedom of religion would have been severely curtailed. The Second Amendment, the right to bear arms, would be brutally attacked. The Fifth Amendment, your due process and equal protection rights, also covered under the 14th Amendment, would be undermined. There's no question about it. And we can go on and on and on. The courts would be packed with radical leftists like Tanya Chutkan, like Sotomayor, like Pan on the circuit court in Washington, D.C., who are not so much judges, they are radicals in robes. Your whole life would change. Prices would be going up because they're going to use price gouging laws as they put their foot on the throat of the golden goose, demanding that the golden goose, which they're killing, continue to lay golden eggs because they're stupid. They're Marxists and socialists. The price of fuel would keep going up where Donald Trump wants to open our oil fields again and get the pumps pumping. Oh, yeah. And we can go on down the list. This is what the Democrats have done for you. Made so much of what was affordable unaffordable. Made your streets unsafe. Made your schools stupid. Oh, yes, they're just fantastic. Go ahead.
The way that the left speaks to its voters, it really is.
A message of joy and inclusiveness?
No, the message of not being educated, being dumb, and what's wrong with America.
This Sonny Houston is a lapdog for the radical left. Joy Behar is a failed radio host and a low IQ buffoon. This show, The View, just like so many shows, so much of our culture, has been hijacked by the most radical and stupid people on the face of the earth. It was supposed to be a show that had serious debate, substantive debate with people with differing views. That's what Barbara Walters wanted. Instead, we get Karen, a.k.a. Whoopi Goldberg, Sonny Houston, Joy Behar, and the other reprobate. What is that other one? Anna Navarra? She's stupid in 2 languages.